its oil market. Ongoing questions about just what happened in the Caribbean and what the Trump administration plans to do next is where we start today. Democratic Congressman Adam Smith joins us. He represents the state of Washington as the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the chance.
Since a small universe of people have seen the video, would you mind just taking us through what you saw and describing for us what is on the video?
Well, I think you described it very accurately, and the Washington Post described it very accurately. You see the initial strike, a lot of smoke. Once it clears, you see that the boat has been substantially destroyed and capsized. So they're clinging to what appears to be the bow of the boat. Now, some of the boat is underwater. How much of it? Is it split in half, or is the entire boat underwater? It's impossible to tell. And you've got two people basically clinging to that portion of the boat. And, you know, that's basically what you see until you finally see the video. I think it's some 40 minutes after the first strike, when the second strike hits, kills the two men, and destroys the boat.
And it is clear that there's enough time, and the Washington Post reports this today, for them to assess the impact of the first strike, assess and see, make eye contact and see that there are two survivors. Is there anything in the video that explains to you why what is the textbook example of where the line is in the laws of war doesn't seem to have been abided by?
Yeah, there's two big issues here. One is the second strike itself, and the basic definition of shipwrecked, which is, ensconced in international law. If you're shipwrecked, you're not supposed to be able to kill the survivors. And I understand the explanation that Admiral Bradley has given as to why he didn't think they were. But you look at that video, it's pretty tough to have reached that conclusion. But the second bigger question is, what was the targeting instruction in the first place? And this is where people need to be aware of just how much President Trump and Secretary Hegseth are expanding their right to strike targets. They've identified these 25 so-called narco-terrorist groups. And if you are part of or affiliated with one of those narco-terrorist groups, you are now a legitimate target in the same way that Osama bin Laden and al-Zawahiri were back in the day, presuming that you are about to attack and try to kill Americans. Further, if you have any drugs with you, if you are in the act of transmitting cocaine in this case, you're a legitimate target. That dramatically expands the legitimate target list here. And is somebody on a boat with cocaine shipping it to some transshipment point, probably headed to West Africa or Europe, by the way, not even headed to the U.S., is that the same as somebody trying to plot flying airplanes into buildings in the United States? I don't think it is. The legal opinions from the Department of Defense have said that it is, and that dramatically expands the targeting. The 11 people on this boat were targeted to be killed. I know a lot of people have taken issue with the Washington Post saying that Secretary Hegseth said kill everybody, as if it was dramatic. Well, he did say kill all 11 people on the boat. So kill them all maybe doesn't adequately describe it, but it's also accurate. He said kill them all 11 of them. Was that really justified? So you've got the authority, and then you have how it was specifically used. And more than anything, this investigation is far from over. There are way too many questions that haven't been answered, and that video needs to be made public. Let the public see it. There is no reason not to allow that video to be seen. And I think if it is seen, you'll see a huge increase in the calls for further investigation on this issue.
The Washington Post report today describes Admiral Bradley as turning to someone in the room, and it's my understanding that he testified to this, and asking for legal advice. Do you have any insight into who gave that advice or what it was?
We don't, and that's another question that needs to be answered here. The whole chain of command and the chain of decision-making, and it would be great if some of this was written down. I mean, this is pretty serious stuff. You'd want to have a clear understanding of what a decision was. So we need to know better. We don't know exactly who gave what advice. We don't know if there was dissenting opinions. We don't even have a clear sense of the chain of command, because in theory, Admiral Halsey, who was the Southern Command commander, he is in charge of the AOR, the area of responsibility. Anything that happens within his area is supposed to be his call first and foremost. Was he involved in that decision making? And if not, why not?
The TikTok is coming together, and I just want to put a few dates in front of you that the public is just learning about. So the first and second strike take place on September 2nd. A legal opinion, it's been reported, doesn't exist anywhere for Admiral Bradley or anybody. It doesn't exist until September 5th, but I've also seen reported that Admiral Bradley and Admiral Halsey don't see it until November. Is that right? And can you flesh that out in terms of what you understand?
Yes, that is absolutely. Yeah, you described it 100% accurately. That is how it played out, how it was explained to us by Admiral Bradley. And also, let's remember that the decision to move forward with these attacks on the boats was made in late July. The way presidents normally run these operations is once they've made that decision, they have an obligation to brief the committees of jurisdiction in Congress, and it depends on exactly what's happening, but the Armed Services Committee and the Intel Committee are supposed to be briefed on these operations. And of course, we didn't find out about any of this until the first boat strike became public. So they didn't even follow that, and even after the first boat strike became public, it was several weeks before they briefed us, and to date, they still haven't briefed Congress on the intelligence behind these decisions. So they say they know who these 11 people were, they know they were affiliated with a specific narco-terrorist group. How do they know that? Show us your work. That's what the intelligence committees, the permanent select committees on intelligence in the House and the Senate, are supposed to be for, and yet they haven't been briefed with that information. And when you have that lack of accountability, it just undermines any confidence in the decision-making and whether or not it's legitimate and the correct decision-making.
Well, and if it's a designation of narco-terrorism, are you aware of any broader